All right, hi everybody. John Meadows here, and I'm with my friend Chris Zaino.
Hey John, how you guys doing?
We are going to do something a little different today.
Yep.
So I'm going to get interviewed. So Chris is going to interview, but before we get into that, you want to just tell everybody how we met and a little bit about yourself?
Right. So I've been working with John since 2015. All right. So I remember I was a middleweight. I was coming back. And I was a middleweight. I was about 160 something pounds, and I won a couple shows. And I remember calling you at the Masters Nationals when I just got second, like that week. And I'm like, I want you to work with me I wanted you to work with me through the off season to compete again. And 10 months later, I was on stage at 197, and we took the Team U, and I got the pro card there.
Got the pro card.
I know. That was awesome.
Are you still 197?
No.
He's a little bigger.
Yeah, I'm a little bigger than that. That now, we were 207 this morning, right?
Yeah.
So it's good. But working with John, it was working with John over 5 years. Like, you see consistency, and there's a great relationship that develops through a mentoree coach relationship. There's accountability. There's a lot of things in my life, just not physically, but reaching the goals I wanted to have, and how that transmutes into every other area of my life. So, number one, I invested in myself by hiring John. So there's all these elements of they're really mindset principles. They're success mindset principles that I want you to understand. I always say that if you could bodybuild, if you could train and you could weigh your food, just think what all bodies, I think every bodybuilder has the discipline to become millionaires. I mean, but it's how you're channeling. Like, you have the mindset. It's how do we actually allow it to transmute into every other area of your life, your relationships, your businesses, all these other things. And I think we're going to talk about that today, the mindset, the Meadows mindset today. So the first thing I want to talk about, which was huge, is accountability. And so one thing, there's a saying that says, when you pay attention. You ever hear that, John? It's like, so when you invest in something, it's gonna become a priority in your life. So, when I hired John for the 5 years, it was really, for me, is one of the greatest investments in my life because of my health. I look and feel better than I ever did at almost 44 than I did in my 30s. And I could tell you there's so many other areas of my life that improved because of that. And accountability was huge because any goal that I had in my life, whether it be physical training, business, anything like that, I always had someone, a friendly competitor, something that I would have accountability for. I would have to not answer to in a friendly, competitive way. Mm-hmm. And that accountability was the glue that made my decision stick. If I said I was going to do it and I had other people to hold me accountable, I did it, because we tend to let ourselves down. So tell me in your life about accountability and how that works, not only in training, but you went through health crises. So what was the accountability people you had in your life?
It's interesting because I see this from a couple different perspectives. So, number one, I feel like I was pretty unique at a young age. So when I was 12, 13 years old, I'll give you a couple of examples. In school, when I had study hall time, I would ask my gym teacher if I could go run around the gym or go to the little teeny high school weight room there at the school and lift weights. Like, I didn't feel like study hall was a good use of my time. Right. I wanted to go train, and nobody made me do that. Nobody asked me to do that, but I was in different sports and I felt like it would make me better, and I wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, I really wanted to do that. And that kind of mindset stuck with me like forever. And as I got older, I trained more. I was just more interested in, I looked at it this way. It's the old simple, what you put into it's what you get out of it. And I always just said, you know what, because I wanted to be a pro football player. And I love track. I was a sprinter. But at some point, all the hard work, I realized I wasn't going to be a sprinter. I wasn't going to be a pro football player. But I could improve. I could be a bodybuilder. That was something I thought, this is something I could do. I could do well at this. But so there's this accountability that you have to yourself. And if you're driven, if you have this internal drive to do something, you hold yourself accountable. Like, for example, let's say you have a really hard workout. Mm-hmm. You get done and you say to yourself, you feel good. Like, man, I did that. But let's say you go in and you just, halfway train. You goof off. You leave the gym and you go, I really didn't get anything done. Now, let's say you're getting ready for a contest. Mm-hmm. Crap, I'm getting ready for a contest and I'm still goofing off. Mm-hmm. So I always had this number one, internally, this accountability to myself. I had very high expectations of myself, and I don't know that I see that a lot with people now. I don't know that I see people on average that have high expectations and accountability to their self. They talk a good game. They say, "I want to do this. I want to be the best at this." But then you ask them, "Well, what are you doing to make that happen?" Somebody might tell me, "I want to be the best strength coach." Blah blah blah. Okay, what are you doing to be the best strength coach? Well, I don't know. You should have a plan. You should be executing on a plan, holding yourself accountable. So I was pretty fortunate in that I had this kind of built-in mentality from a very young age that just kind of stuck with me. And it was with me through my work career, holding myself accountable as a parent, all these things. My family life, I have very high expectations of myself. I'm very hard on myself. I'm very critical. And then you have another group of people that they're not necessarily, they don't have that skill, but they can have somebody else hold them accountable, which I don't think one is better than the other. I just think it's different people. So there are some things that I reach out to other people on that I need help in some areas. I've got some business mentors of mine, for example, and I've had them help me a lot. I'm a football coach now, and I'm not Bill Belichick, so I have to go find other people that have skills that I don't have. I have to see what they're doing, or what are they doing, or how would they look at this situation, would they look at this defense, how would they look at this offense. And you find people like that, and if you're fortunate enough, you can have some kind of engagement, and they can mentor you, or they can help you in some way. And when you have someone that's holding you accountable, it kind of changes the game. It puts you in a position where you have to do things daily or weekly to push toward your goals, instead of, well, I'll get to it next week. Well, I'll get to it next month. I really don't have any football games coming up, or I don't have any competitions coming up. So you don't really have that drive. But when you have somebody that you're accountable to, it can help push things along. So I think I'm kind of talking in circles here, but there's a group of people that's very good at holding yourself accountable. And for the most part, that tends to be more me. And there's a group of people that you may need somebody else to hold you accountable. And that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just recognize where you're at. And I would say most people, even me, there's some accountability in areas that, I'm accountable to my wife for a lot of stuff, right? And so you can't be perfect at everything. So there's always going to be somebody that, can give you that accountability no matter what you're doing. So that's kind of how I see it. I think I was probably a little unique in how I was built mentally, but I've also leaned on a lot of people to help me. And believe me, my business mentor, Dave, if I do something stupid, he'll tell me, and that you need that too. You need people to tell you. So bottom line is very productive. It's a very good thing to get people in your life that are going to help you meet your goals and hold you accountable to doing the daily activities that's required to get to a goal. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. What are you doing daily to get to your goal?
Right, and when you look at time, time is your greatest commodity. We could always make more money, but you can't make more time. So when you see it from a time perspective, you want to shrink that time gap to get to that goal. And so when I always use this analogy, when I'm in the bottle, I can't read the label, right? So when you have mentors and thought leaders in your life, like John, they could see stuff, blind spots that you don't see. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of times you don't even know that there's a blind spot, but you need that person looking in. That, like you said, what I appreciate, but they'll tell you exactly the way they see it. They're not going to sugarcoat it. And it literally will shrink time. And then you're probably talking to someone that had how many years of experience and mistakes. Remember, someone else paid what I call tuition. When you make a mistake and it costs you a lot of money, it's tuition. You learn the school of hard knocks, what to do, what not to do, and just to be able to benefit from that person. And like John said, you reach out. You'll be surprised at the people that you ask. If they know that you have a drive in you and they love your vision, they'll invite you to lunch. I mean, listen, you know what wisdom you could get for just picking up a tab to talk to someone who has experience? It's the cost of a lunch, and it could totally change your life. So it's just being around these thought leaders and apprenticing or whatever it needs to be to really shrink that gap to reach that goal. But like John said, it's accountability. If that person sees that you're floundering, or like I life coach a couple people, they pay me to consult, and it doesn't matter how much you pay me. It's like, when they're floundering, not really doing the job, I can't help you if you're not doing what needs to be done to shift your mindset to get to the goal you got. So yeah, the thought leadership, the mentorship, the accountability, they always go hand in hand when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to just what I call the Meadows mindset, people have heard your story in health and all these other things you went through. It's like, so when you're going through the journey, the fact that, you're even bodybuilding, doing the stuff you're doing today, it's like a lot of people would have given up, right? Or they would have went into what we call a victim mentality. It's very easy to do that, right? Well, you don't understand my story. Like, it's so easy to go and lay into the circumstances because it's very justifiable and everybody would agree with you. Like, almost like you become, your significance could be found in being the person who had the trauma. Or hey, John, I feel bad for you. And you could kind of wallow in that, right? So there was something inside you, okay, that's like, not only am I going to overcome this, which was brutal. I mean, if John could tell you some stories, and the surgeries and all that other stuff and the infections, like all this stuff behind the scenes no one knows about. He doesn't talk about it because you were rising above it. So during that time, we know that you're probably scared and stuff like that, but then a lot of people think that you got to be super positive going through everything. But I believe when you're reality, like, you were scared, you had, but what was the switch, or what was the drivers that made you, instead of sitting and becoming a victim and indifferent and what I call apathy, and not like saying, well, because you could easily sit back and collected, Medicaid and just kind of been this handicapped person for the rest of your life. But what allowed you to overcome, build your business, and really do what you're doing today? Like, there's a that's the mindset I want to get out of you today. There's some shift that happens where, if you could just kind of give us a glimpse of it, maybe that person that's watching this, that might, especially during what's going on now, they might have lost their job, or they can't even do their job anymore. And they're feeling like a victim. And it's very easy in the COVID thing to feel like a victim and be like, well, I have no control. So with your health, there was times where you felt like, you said, I had no control. So where was the comeback story? What was the motivator?
So I had a couple things happen, obviously. In 2005, I had some surgeries. I had my colon removed. And I was told that, you're probably not going to be able to compete again. Certainly at a high level, you won't be able to compete again. This was 2005. And you know what the greatest challenge is? It's you've got to ride the line between delusion and I won't quit. Okay,
stay right there. Write that down. There's a fine line between delusion and I don't quit. And really, what delusion is when everybody's like, John, that's good thinking. Maybe you should. So it's not really delusion. It's like, you have a dream. You used one of your mental faculty, which was imagination of what could be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like in bodybuilding terms, it might be delusional for somebody to say, I'm not going to be a pro bodybuilder. I just won't ever be. Like, for me, if I say I'm going to be a pro football player, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to start today, that's delusional. But you don't really know until you've really given it everything, right? So I had these surgeries happen, and I had a lot of infections, multiple surgeries. I don't want to bore everybody, but what happened was I ended up getting down to 165 pounds.
Right.
And I started to come back. I went to the gym. I started eating a little bit more, and I started seeing changes. I kept going back every week, every day, a little bit better, a little bit better.
Tell me real quick. I don't want to tell them about the leg extension.
Oh yeah. So when I got out of the worst situation I was in with infections and things like that, and I wasn't able to eat. I was being fed intravenously through a thing called a PICC line. When that was over, I went to the gym, and the first thing I did was I wanted to train legs, right? I love training legs. So I sit down on leg extension. It's a selectorized one where you put the pins in the weight. And I put the pin in so there was only one plate. So I don't know if that's 20 pounds or 40 pounds, but it's one plate. And I started to extend my leg, and my leg just started shaking, where it could barely do that. That's how weak I was. And then when I got home, we had this little pair of pink 3-pound dumbbells. So I'm sitting there curling, I'm doing hammer curls, I'm just trying to come back. And that was my starting point. Like, when people say I had to start over, no, I had to start over. And I stuck with it, and I just kept seeing more positive changes, and then it gave me hope. It was like, okay, I know what everybody said, but I think I can work through this. I continued to go, and eventually I got my pro card. But so there was that fine line between delusion. Is this delusional, or am I giving it everything I have? And I chose, and I thought that I wasn't being delusional. I thought I do have a chance. I'm going to make it happen. But to go back to the earlier part of our conversation, I got to do the things that it takes to make it happen. So, that happened, and that's kind of a good microcosm of how I feel about things. Like you never really know how far you can go or what you can do until you just put everything into it. I just don't know. Like as a football coach, for example, I coach 5th and 6th graders, right? I'm spending hours and hours and hours studying how can I have the best offense? How can I do this? I'm putting everything I have into it. And I have aspirations of coaching at a higher level. Now, is it delusional or is it attainable? I think it's attainable. So I need to put the action, I need to take action to make that happen. So for those of you watching this, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to do? And then what are the actions that you need to take to get it there? I mean, my mindset was, for me to walk away from something, I better have known I gave it everything, man. Like I need to know that I gave it everything. And I'm going to put everything I have into what I want. I don't expect anybody to hand me anything. That's another piece of my mindset, Chris, that I've had is I don't expect anybody to owe me anything. Nobody owes me anything. I'm going to earn anything I get. I'm going to earn, and I think that's kind of a problem that we see a lot now. People have kind of an entitlement mentality, and somebody owes me this. Nobody owes me anything, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to go out and earn what I want.
So there's extreme ownership, and I just get the one that really impressed upon me is how many times we think of a goal or we have an idea and it's inspired. And inspired means from within. You get excited about it. And immediately you let logic or maybe the past things of your life get in the way or the how. Well, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Where John's like, well, here's my idea. The only way I could prove if it's attainable or not is I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to either prove to myself it was attainable or prove to myself it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Like that right there, I think it might be a good close to the video because it's like just that alone. It's like you don't listen to everybody else or think of how it's like. Well, here's my idea, and I'm going to prove to myself. And at the end, and if you didn't hit the goal, you got to ask yourself, did I do the best I could?
Did I do the best?
And if you didn't, then what do you have to do to that? And then set the date, and then go at it again. Mm-hmm. But I love that. It's like, well, the only way I could find out is let's go for it. So John's willing to jump into the unknown. Right? And the unknown is where all the beauty happens. Just think how many people you met and opportunities that open up just going for something versus a lot of times we do paralysis analysis, right? We'll analyze and go on Google and literally talk ourselves up to stay in what we call the old paradigm. It's a servo mechanism. Like, when the air conditioner goes off, the thermostat, for us to quantum out of that, you got to be willing to do something and try something. And that you weren't willing to do, or you can't be doing the same things, the recipe that you did in the past to get different results in the future. So I love that the ideas that you have right now, whether it be in fitness, in business, or anything, well, there's something called the law of gender. And the law of gender means that there's a gestation period for anything. So when you have a goal, like when John was 165 pounds, he didn't think I'm going to be back in a week. The law of gestation means like we know it takes a baby 9 months to form, or a carrot, 70 days. So there's a time factor that you're willing to give yourself.
It took me years.
And it took him years. And remember, you couldn't even flex your abs for years, right? And then it came back, right? Yeah. So always remember that whatever that goal is you have or idea, you need to prove it to yourself. And at the same time, bring in people in your life that have done that so they could kind of give you coaching and accountability, whether you pay for it or not. And then you owe it to yourself. I love that. No one owes you anything. You owe it to yourself to go out and but go all out, do the best you can. So at the end, that, hey, I gave it 100%. And if I didn't, what do I have to pivot to make sure that happens?
Yeah. And I'll wrap it up by saying this too. So when I started bodybuilding in my early 20s, mid 20s, we were always taught, or we heard that you can't have a good job and be a bodybuilder at the same time. You can't do both. I said, that doesn't make any sense. I think I can. So as you know, I was in the corporate world for many years. When I opened the membership website to my website back almost 11 years ago, people said, no one's ever going to pay for that. Everything's available on the internet. It's a bad idea. Well, I did it and it worked out really well. I mean, I've been told that all these things I'm doing, I was told mountain dog training would never work. Because as soon as people Google mountain dog, they're going to just get pictures of mountain dogs. Like no one will ever know who you are. People have told me over and over and over, and I can probably give you 20 more examples if I sat here, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. So people are going to tell you it's a bad idea. Maybe they're right, but that you don't really know until you've given it everything. So don't be so quick to get outside opinions, but don't be so quick to go, you know what? Yeah, that's a bad idea. I'm not even going to try it. Don't be one of those people that says I'm not even going to try it.
That was awesome, John. So if you enjoyed that, please comment below. Please share this video as well, because it really is the mindset factor of John Meadows that is amazing. And again, share this to someone they definitely know that could benefit from hearing that. And please comment on any other topics you'd like to hear.